So I've got the Jaguar Mk2's XK engine here, and what I want to do is check to see whether it's nice and clean inside, whether there's loads of wear in there. So I'm going to make a start. I'm going to take the cylinder head off. So here we go. I've already loosened the one cam cover off, but hopefully a little bit of a gentle shock. There we go. Now, this Jag XK engine was designed during this kind of early to mid 1940s, and it was used by Jaguar cars, production cars, from 1948 to 1992. So it was actually quite a long-lived design, a brilliant piece of kit. Probably one of the most famous cars to feature a Jaguar XK engine was the E-Type Jaguar. Now, I've taken this cover off before, and I can see down here that this cam cover has actually been over tightened, so it's actually split, but at least it can be repaired. So what I'm going to do now is remove number one spark plug. Now, on most engines this would be called number 6, because they number the cylinders from 1 to 6, front to back. But on this engine, reputedly, because it was built or designed by aircraft engineers, but I don't know if that's true, on this engine they were numbered numbers 1 to 6, back to front. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do to get a rough position is I'm going to pop the screwdriver in. That's showing me that number 1 is going down, and then in a minute it will be at the top of its stroke. So that is number 1 piston at what's known as top dead centre. So that's as high up on its stroke as it's ever going to go. So I want to time up numbers 1 and 2 camshafts. So I know that the number 1 cylinder is at top dead centre, so rather than trying to mark these so that they're just pointing straight up, which would be a little bit vague, what I want to do is introduce a tiny bit of science and just mark them at 90 degrees to this face here. Okay, so I've got 1 mark on there, and I'm going to mark this one with 2 marks, because this is number 2. Now I've positively marked up these 2 cam wheels, so I can now start stripping everything off. Now these cam wheels, the bolts are actually kept in place. There's a hole drilled through the head of the bolt, and through that is passed some locking wire, and that acts as a mechanical barrier to those bolts actually coming undone. Right, so gasket off. At the back here there are some little rubber inserts that just seal the cam covers. Again, we won't be using those because they go a bit hard, they don't seal properly, and we get oil leaks. There we go, there's 1 off, 2 off. So now I can push those cam wheels up a little bit, which will allow me to get the head off once I've undone all the cylinder head bolts. You might notice that I'm just undoing these from the outside in. That's because I want to release the pressure evenly. Right, so that's all of the head bolts off. So with a little help from my trusty plastic persuader here, oh, I can see it moving already. Come on, that's it. Yep. Right, could I have an assistant, please? There we go. Okay. These water galleries are not too bad actually. You can see a bit of corrosion around here, and that corrosion happens when the incorrect coolant is put in. But actually there's enough meat on the side of here, it's not looking too bad. Right, so taking these studs out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take off the water pump, get the timing chest off the front of the engine, flip it up, and then we'll be looking good. So I've tipped the engine upside down and I've loosened all the sump nuts and bolts out. There we are. So just take a look inside the sump. So all that grey sludge is material that's come off the main and big end bearings. So it probably means that we've caught this engine just in time. Here we've got the oil pump, which is driven from a gear on the crankshaft here. I'm bending back these tabs on the tab washers, so it's false economy to use the tabs again. I'm at the stage where I can start removing the big ends and also the main bearing caps. I've loosened everything off. So here, this is number 5. You can see it's been stamped in there, number 5. Now, a little bit of a whack on number 1. Here it says number 1. And also on the connecting rod there's a number 1, so you match the number to the number. There's one of the bearing shells. And what happens here is the coating can wear through, and below that there's normally a copper layer. Quite often what happens when the white metal or the alloy face of the bearing is a plain bearing, when that wears out you get to see the little copper bit, and that's when you can really tell that the bearings are wearing. But actually that one's not too bad. Now I'm going to take the main bearing caps off with a bit of, oh yes, with a bit of persuasion. We're going to keep them in order. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in total. So here you can see the copper actually has worn through. So in fact these main journals, or these main bearings, are actually probably quite worn. So I think we have actually caught this just in time. So I've got the front timing chain cover off, the timing chain's out. I had problems with getting the front bearing cap out past here. The distributor drive gear wouldn't come out past there, so I had to remove all of that. And we should be ready to get this crank out. It's going to be heavy, so there we go. So that's the crank out, but yeah, the main bearings are probably going to need grinding there. The main journals are going to need grinding. We've got all these grub screws going through into the ore galleries that go all the way through this crank. I'm going to take those out and clean them out thoroughly, because if the rest of the engine's anything to go by, they'll be full of that leady grey sludge that was in there. Once it's reground, we'll be able to get this back into the engine with resized bearings, and that will be this crankshaft back to full health.